Hello and welcome to Timeless with Julie Hartman Live. It is Monday, September 9th, 2024. I'm Julie Hartman, and it is great, as always, to be with you. 844-861-5537 is the call-in number, 844-861-5537. And as always, you can use the live chat, which I have a direct line to right here, as long as you keep it classy. Now, be sure to tune into the live show, of course, tomorrow, but definitely Wednesday, because we know that tomorrow night is the first presidential debate between. But today we have a truly sort of like crime show episode. And I want to start this episode out by introducing you to our two protagonists today. Let's pull up picture 2. We have here on the right a woman named Linda Sun, who is holding the hand of her husband, Chris Hugh. Now, this couple is married, as I indicated. They are both naturalized U.S. citizens, and they have had a pretty nice life here in the United States. Let's show picture 6. This is their primary residence. This is a $3.6 million Long Island home, which the couple has resided in for many years. In addition to that, they also have a $1.9 million condo in Honolulu, Hawaii. Those are just two of those assets that we know. We also know that recently the couple purchased a 2024 Ferrari, maybe to drive to the airport to take the plane from Long Island to go to the condo in Honolulu. So of course, we want to figure out, what did this couple do in order to make so much money, in order to have such a lovely life? Well, you're going to find out today, because it turns out that those two individuals appear to be agents of the Chinese Communist Party and the People's Republic of China. Let's pull up that photo again, picture 2. Linda Sun, the woman on the right, who has also gone by Wen Sun and Ling Da Sun, she worked for the New York State government from 2012 until 2023. That means that she worked under the administrations of former governor of New York, Andrew Cuomo, who in the indictment is referred to as Politician 1. He served from 2011 to 2021. I actually remember the day that he resigned because of sexual misconduct allegations, because it was my first time ever guest hosting for Dennis Prager. And I remember Sean said in my ear, hey, New York Governor Andrew Cuomo, who was, what did people call him? They said they were Cuomo-sexual. This was the New York COVID year, when apparently Governor Andrew Cuomo was just a darling as far as his COVID measures. So he resigned in 2021. Linda Sun worked under him for 10 years. And then she went over and worked for Governor Kathy Hochul. Linda Sun actually became Governor Hochul's deputy chief of staff. But it turns out, according to this federal indictment unsealed last Tuesday, that Linda Sun, in her capacity in the New York State government, was, quote, acting as an undisclosed agent of the government of the People's Republic of China. She worked to, quote, further the interests of the Chinese government and the CCP. We're going to be talking about the various efforts that Linda Sun undertook while she was working in really many different capacities in the New York State government. But first, before we even dive into that, I want to show you one of those capacities that Linda Sun was working in. As it turns out, in addition to being the deputy chief of staff for Governor Kathy Hochul, Miss Sun was also the chief diversity officer. Let's roll video 11 of this alleged Chinese Communist Party agent institutionalizing DEI in the New York State government.
Officer for the state, I think, when people say diversity and inclusion, I think everybody agrees, or most people generally agree that it's a good thing, right? But I think right now we also need to bring in the word equity, right? Diversity is when you say that there's, many different types of people with different backgrounds and they're all, invited to the table. Inclusion is when, we include all of their ideas. But equity is when we make sure that all of the people who are at the table have equal access to making sure that their ideas and their thoughts are heard. And unfortunately, I think some of the statistics that you quoted is that we don't have that much leadership or representation of Asian Americans in, the corporate world, the government field, right?
Well, despite what this individual said, according to the indictment, which we're going to dive into, her voice was certainly heard in the New York state government. But before we get to that, just up top here, I want to quickly tell you about why it's a really good time to invest in gold. On this show, we have talked about the Bretton Woods system, which was in place from 1944 to 1971 in the United States. And what that did was it pegged the US dollar to the price of gold. And then other currencies pegged themselves to the US dollar. And that was really smart because we tied our assets to something physical, something that has value, no matter the economic climate. And right now, economists are warning us about massive tax hikes that could hit our IRAs and 401ks hard. We know that we have inflation, global uncertainty, and it's no wonder that central banks and many Americans are turning again to gold. If you haven't thought about gold yet, now is the time, and you should consider trusting Priority Gold to help you diversify your savings with gold and silver. Text Golden to 1-800-405-GOLD for a free gold information guide and see if you qualify for free shipping and storage. Experts agree that physical gold is one of the best ways to fortify your savings. Act now to get your portfolio working for you while, at least for now, the market is golden. Text Golden to 1-800-405-GOLD. That's text Golden to 1-800-405-GOLD. Okay, back to this big scandal, which really, both surprisingly and unsurprisingly, has not had the kind of impact in the United States that it ought to. Here we have, last week on Tuesday, a years-long federal investigation become unsealed in this indictment against an individual who was working for the New York state government for 10 years. And it appears that this individual was acting as an undisclosed agent of our principal foreign adversary while she was in this job. And so I just want to go through here and make you aware of the various job positions that this individual had in the New York state government. And then we're going to look at the actual ways that she influenced New York state and American policy in order to further the interests of the Chinese Communist Party. And it really is amazing, this is going to be a theme of our discussion, that unless more information, which it very well could, comes out about the governors raising red flags or other people inside of the New York state government office raising red flags, it appears that this woman, for a decade, was able to make a lot of headway with very little pushback, if any at all. And it appears very obvious once you read this indictment that this individual was working on behalf of another government. But here were some of her job positions. So first, she was the director of Asian American Affairs for the state of New York from 2012 to 2015. Then she was the director of the economic development arm, this is according to the indictment, of the New York state government. That was from 2015 to 2018. She then entered probably the most cushy position anybody could have in a United States government. She was the Deputy Chief Diversity Officer from 2018 to 2020. Then she got kicked up to be the Superintendent for Intergovernmental Affairs and the Chief Diversity Officer at the New York State Department of Financial Services from 2020 to 2021. The video you just watched was when she was serving in that position. Then, once Governor Andrew Cuomo resigned on the day that yours truly was first guest hosting for Dennis Prager, Governor Kathy Hochul took over the reins. From there, Ms. Sun served as Governor Hochul's deputy chief of staff. That was from September 2021 to September of 2022. And then she went over to be deputy commissioner for strategic business development for the New York State Department of Labor from September of 2022 until finally in March of 2023, she apparently was fired for misconduct that people had uncovered in her capacity there. So finally, after about 11 years, somebody blew the whistle on this individual. So she and her husband are being charged with really all of these different things that are just terrible, for violating the Foreign Agents Registration Act, for visa fraud, for alien smuggling, money laundering, and it really is just unbelievable. So let's dive in here and look at some of the ways that she really did influence New York State policy. Let's look at picture 5. This is from the indictment, which is really easy to read and quite riveting. You can look it up on documentcloud.org. This is straight from the indictment. It says, while working for the New York State government, including high-ranking posts for Politician 1 and Politician 2. By the way, they did not say the names, but many believe those individuals to be Governor Andrew Cuomo is Politician 1, and then Governor Kathy Hochul is Politician 2. Linda Sun acted as an undisclosed agent of the PRC, acting at the request of PRC government officials and CCP representatives. Sun engaged in numerous political activities in the interests of the PRC, including, and here we go, blocking representatives of the Taiwanese government from having access to the New York State Governor's office, changing Politician 1 and Politician 2's messaging regarding issues of importance to the People's Republic of China and the Chinese Communist Party. We're going to look at an example of how she successfully altered Governor Kathy Hochul's speech with regard to China policy. Ms. Sun also was involved in, quote, obtaining official New York State governor proclamations for the People's Republic of China government representatives without proper authorization. So she essentially enabled PRC officials to come visit the state of New York and actually have FaceTime with New York State politicians. And she almost successfully had a trip by Politician 2 to the People's Republic of China, though that did not end up happening, but it appears that she was nearly successful in that attempt. In return for these efforts, I'm reading again here from the indictment, Linda Sun received substantial economic and other benefits from representatives of the PRC and the CCP, including the facilitation of millions of dollars in transactions for PRC-based business activities of Sun's husband. So her husband got a lot of business. He had a fishing company. He also had this kind of weird financial consulting agency operating out of Queens. So the indictment alleges that he got a lot of business as a result of his wife's activities. They also got, reading from the indictment, travel benefits, tickets to events, promotion of close family, friends, businesses, employment for Sun's cousin in the PRC. And according to a later part of the indictment, they also had a personal chef make them a spectacular duck meal in return for specifically the efforts to prevent Taiwanese officials from meeting with Governor Kathy Hochul. So this is just going on for 11 years. And are you telling me that people didn't realize this? Is this not shady to people? You know, we live in this era where you cannot profile people. If you profile someone, you're deemed to be a bigot and a racist and a xenophobe. Well, here's the deal. We all profile people all the time. We racially profile people. We religiously profile people. We height and weight profile people. We attractiveness profile people. I mean, come on. When you're walking down the street and you see somebody cute, what are you doing? Are you getting a clandestine sense of their lovely inner soul and their vibe? No, you're checking them out. And so why can't we just acknowledge this? And why can't we use it in a principled way to our benefit? If there is someone who is working in the New York State office, and this person was born in the People's Republic of China, came over here when she was young. By the way, she went to Barnard College, and then Sean can fact check me on this. I believe that she went to Columbia Graduate School. And, she is, as we're about to get into, advocating for certain parts of the governor's speeches to be amended in ways that very closely and clearly reflect the positions of the People's Republic of China. If this person is, getting PRC officials to come out to New York in order to meet with people. I mean, and also this individual lives in a $3 million mansion in Long Island, getting a government salary. Are you telling me you're not going to profile that? Are you telling me you're not going to have some raised eyebrows at what might be going on here? So what I would like to postulate is that either there were many people in the New York State office that knew that this was going on and didn't care, or maybe suspected it and turned a blind eye. Because it is so bleeping obvious getting into this that this individual was acting as a foreign agent. Like there's literally no other way around it. One of the principal allegations against Linda Sun, and this is so important for us to realize, is that in addition to money laundering, in addition to visa fraud, in addition to alien smuggling, what she fundamentally did was violate the Foreign Agents Registration Act. This is picture 7. We'll just show it quickly. It's in the indictment if you care to look it up. The Foreign Agents Registration Act was passed in 1938 to, according to the indictment, prevent covert influence by foreign officials. And it's actually really a remarkable statute, and such an American statute where essentially so many other countries, including and especially the People's Republic of China, does not allow foreign agents to come in and push forward their desired policy or economic preferences in that country. I mean, China and Russia and many, many countries all around the world have very, very strict laws against the presence of foreigners. But here in the United States, we will allow certain foreign agents to come in and advocate for their government's political or economic stances as long as those foreign agents register with the federal government. And so, again, reading here from the indictment, according to the FARA Act passed in 1938, it, quote, requires any person acting in the United States as an agent of a foreign principal to register with the Attorney General if he or she is engaged either directly or indirectly in certain types of conduct such as political activities, political consulting, public relations, or publicity activities for or in the interest of a foreign principal. So you can come here and act in the interest of a foreign principal as long as you just register yourself. I mean, it's obviously a little bit more complicated than that. If you're coming in here, we would hope that this would be the case. And if you told the U.S. government, like, yes, I want to come in here and overthrow the United States, we would very much hope that the U.S. government would not give you FARA protections. But you never know today, because part of our understanding of our free country is that freedom should be unfettered. Freedom should also be unfeathered. I like unfeathered freedom, but I don't like unfettered freedom. We think, oh, we're the United States. It's xenophobic for us to not allow someone to come in and lobby. It's xenophobic for us to not allow people to come in and want to establish their own culture here. Because, all cultures are equal and it's just their truth. We have a different truth than they do. We've just succumbed to this moral relativism, this idea that our country can just be an open place for however many people want to come here, however many ideas they would like to implant here. And I am the biggest supporter and proponent and admirer of American freedom within the proper grounds. But this doesn't mean that we're just a landing pad for people to do whatever they want. It is a crime, according to the federal indictment, to knowingly and willfully fail to register when required under FARA. And here's the thing that people must understand. Proper registration, again, I'm reading from the indictment, under FARA allows U.S. government and the public to evaluate the statements and activities of individuals who were serving as agents of foreign principals in light of their status as foreign agents. Seems to make a lot of sense. You got to know where people are coming from and what their context is. And so FARA actually has a unit. It has a section of the Department of Justice website. And you can go online because, as I had just read, the purpose of this is to inform the public about the intentions of the foreign agent. You can go online and look up FARA unit filings that have been approved by the federal government. And here are the things that you'll see. You'll see the identity of the person and on whose behalf that individual or company is acting on. Shows what they do, gives an idea of their compensation, their political campaign contributions, and registration statements showing when the U.S. government had given permission for these agents or companies to set up shop in the United States. And so today I went on the DOJ website and looked at the FARA unit. We have picture 14 here. And this was just a random, I literally just clicked on a random FARA unit filing. And this was actually for a company in India that came to the United States. And you'll see here, it says, is this foreign principal owned by a foreign government, foreign political party, or other foreign principal? Yes. You'll see down the fourth line, controlled by a foreign government, foreign political party, or foreign principal. Yes. Financed by a foreign government, foreign political party, or other foreign principal. Yes. So I'm not saying you can do whatever you want, but it's pretty damn easy to come here and do whatever you want as long as you just register with the federal government. That's a whole different story. It's complicated, of course, because we are a country that thrives on being meritocratic. We thrive on picking out the best ideas. I mean, this is what the Roman Empire did. They would incorporate different ideas, even if it was outside of their bounds. They would usually end up conquering those people, but we'll put that aside for now. But if you presented a good idea, it was part of the Roman identity that they would incorporate it into their way of doing things. And we have succeeded because we are a diverse country and because we do reward people, no matter their religion or ethnicity or country of origin, if they are contributing something meaningful and noble. So it's a good thing in some ways, but in other ways, we clearly have come to this place of allowing many, many different people to come here and very overtly push forward what they want. And it is just amazing that this individual was able to accomplish this for 11 years with no FARA registration. She probably could have done it. She probably could have done all the things that she did if she had just registered, because we know how incompetent our government is at tracking these things. But she didn't even do that. So let's look at some examples. I'm going to provide you with definitely two, maybe a third if you're interested, of how she influenced policy and decision-making in New York State government. And then we're going to get to the whole DEI stuff, because that is a whole I think, part of this that people are not seeing. People are focusing on the emails, on the travel, on the federal documents that are allowing people to come into the United States, which is alien smuggling. But I think the most interesting thing that this individual seems to have done is her DEI work within the New York State government. That is just as much of a weapon, I think, of the PRC as what we're about to see here. So, as we've talked about on this show before, and as anyone with any kind of knowledge of the world knows, the People's Republic of China, in addition to all of its other atrocities, both domestically and internationally, are massacring Uyghur Muslims. They round up Uyghur Muslims, put them in concentration camps, force them into slave labor, and many times execute them, but first harvest their organs in order to sell on the black market. And whenever the United States has acknowledged this or talked about this, it has not been met, obviously, with particularly warm feelings from the People's Republic of China. Donald Trump, when he was president, actually froze the bank accounts of foreign nationals who appeared to be involved in the Uyghur massacres. And so it's been a source of contention between the PRC and the United States governments. So let me read this to you. This is from the indictment. On or about January 12th, 2021, PRC Official 4, and this is how by the way, the indictment refers to consulate officials. These are Chinese nationals working at the Chinese consulate, in New York, who are coordinating with Linda Sun, who is working as a United States government official in the New York State's office, and they are coordinating efforts, including amending the governor's public messaging about China in order to further their own country's interests. And so what's so important is that these PRC officials, again, they are at the consulate. Linda Sun is working as an American government official for the American government. What's a great thing about this country is that if you're born in China and you become an American citizen, you can work at the highest level in the United States government. But that does not mean that you have a right to infiltrate this government and work on behalf of your country of origin. You became an American citizen. You took an oath in order to serve the American government for the state of New York. You are working on behalf of America. So this PRC official from the consulate wrote to the defendant, Linda Sun, to inquire if politician 1 would like to make a short video commemorating Lunar New Year. The following day, Sun replied, quote, "Let me ask, but likely politician 2, that's who many believe is Governor Kathy Hochul, and in the indictment it's referred to as she, so it's Kathy Hochul. Let me ask, but likely politician 2 can probably do it." Then Linda Sun asks the PRC official, "Can you share with me some talking points of things you want her to mention? I can make sure to include it in her remarks." And so then they go back and forth about, the kind of messaging. The PRC official says mostly wishes for the Lunar New Year, could also mention that 2020 has been challenging for people around the world, doesn't need to be long. Sun replies, "Do you have time for a call later?" And then the PRC official and Linda Sun have, according to the indictment, a 10-minute phone call. A week later, after this phone call, Linda Sun confirms with the PRC official that politician 2, Governor Kathy Hochul, agreed to deliver the speech. Then, a few days later, we see, according to the indictment, that Sun reported to this PRC official that she had had an argument with politician 2's speechwriter concerning the Lunar New Year message. According to Sun, the speechwriter had insisted that politician 2 mention the, quote, Uyghur situation in the People's Republic of China during the speech. PRC official one, that's who was communicating with Linda Sun, commented that the speechwriter had likely never been to the PRC before and didn't know the PRC well. Sun agreed that the speechwriter had never been to the PRC, and Sun was starting to lose her temper. PRC official one wrote to Sun that U.S. PRC relations turn sour because of people like the speechwriter. Sun promised that she would figure out how to remedy the situation, adding that she could not let politician 2 mention the Uyghur situation. And then to close, quote, in fact, in her public Lunar New Year message for 2021, politician 2 did not refer to the plight of the Uyghurs in the People's Republic of China. Success. So again, are you come on, tell me that these individuals are not that stupid. You telling me that there's someone working here for them who is born in China and who is losing her temper, according to this indictment, with the speechwriter and trying to get them to remove the massacre of the Uyghur Muslims from the speech. And then the speechwriter signs off on it, and the governor, she maybe didn't have knowledge of this. We could give her the benefit of the doubt. Then the governor is just like, okay, yep, I won't mention it. Cool, nothing to see here. Come on. I want an investigation into Governor Kathy Hochul. I was in the producer's dungeon. By the way, hello, Sean McConnell. Great to be with you.
Hello, Julie. How are you?
Well, I'm fired up about this. It's ridiculous.
When you started talking about it, I looked up because I initially thought, who blew the whistle on this? Where did this all start?
Yeah.
And I found out that the Department of Justice has initiated a wave of prosecutions over the last 4 years, which means this started under the Trump administration, and they've brought at least a dozen criminal cases against more than 90 people.
You mean in the New York State government?
Just in Brooklyn alone.
Yeah, not shocking. But we need an investigation into Governor Kathy Hochul and Governor Andrew Cuomo and the whole New York State government, as far as I'm concerned. This is so bleeping obvious. You cannot convince me for a minute that they didn't have any kind of suspicion. And by the way, either way, it shows that these people should not be in power. Because if they didn't have suspicion, it means they're stupid. It means they have no knowledge of the United States policy with regard to the People's Republic of China, and they have no idea what's going on in the People's Republic of China. So that's immediately disqualifying. And then if they had suspicion and didn't act on it, well, as one of my dear producers in the producer's dungeon said to me, that is treason. So that is, seemingly minor compared to some of the other things that this individual did. For instance, there's a huge part of this indictment which shows that Linda Sun went to great efforts and successfully managed to have the New York State Department not meet with several members of the Taiwanese consulate. This is referred to as TECO. TECO is the Taipei Economic and Cultural Representative Office in the United States. It's headquartered in Washington, D.C. And as I'm reading from the indictment, it is the de facto but unofficial embassy of Taiwan. And so there are these emails that between Linda Sun and these PRC consulate officials, one from June 9th, 2016 reads, quote, just an FYI for you that the Taipei Economic Office is trying to secure politician 2 for an event. They sent the invitation to another colleague trying to bypass me. I'm working on it now. Let's pause. That sentence, now that I read it aloud, is very revelatory. Clearly, TECO, the Taipei Economic and Cultural Representative Office, had enough of a suspicion of Linda Sun in order to, quote, bypass her. She's saying that they sent the invitation to someone else. So the Taiwanese consulate knows who the agents are in the New York State government's office, but then the New York State government officials don't know who the foreign agents are. Right. Got it. Sun bragged, according to the indictment, to these PRC agents that she had successfully prevented Teko from meeting with Politician 1 and Politician 2. In return for these and other acts, the PRC consulate provided Sun and her family with gifts, including tickets to shows, concerts, and events, as well as salted ducks. This is what I had mentioned, prepared by PRC officials 1's personal chef. How very nice. Another day, on August 7th, 2019, Sun wrote to PRC official 1, quote, "As you know, I have successfully blocked all formal and informal meetings between Politician 1, Politician 2, and Teko. I myself have maintained a bare minimum of a relationship with them." So there, she's I mean, it's right there. She's admitting it. She's literally admitting what she's done. I have successfully blocked them from meeting. And as part of the evidence unsealed in this indictment, there's a video of Linda Sun at an anti-Taiwan government protest. This was this video 3 was taken on July 12th, 2019. Let's look at it for a minute. There she is. There she is. So, of course, this individual is an American. She's allowed to go to whatever protest she wants. But this wasn't any concerning element to the New York state government that during the time that the Taiwanese officials are coming to the United States, that one of the highest officials, or at least one of the officials who is closest enough to the highest officials in the New York state government, is attending an anti-Taiwan protest. And I'm sure these individuals are aware of meetings between Teko officials and the New York government that were canceled or removed from the calendar. And it's just allowed to happen. I could go on. It's really incredible, this indictment, but I'll just tell you one other very important thing. So we had talked about alien smuggling was one of the charges. Reading here from the indictment. Sun's activities include fraudulently obtaining letters that purported to be from the executive chamber, inviting delegations of the People's Republic of China government officials to visit New York, which the PRC government officials used to unlawfully obtain visas to enter the United States, arranging for visiting PRC officials to meet with New York State officials, including Politician 2, obtaining a false letter of employment for a Chinese-operated and financed company, and attempting to facilitate a trip by Politician 2 to the PRC. Cool. We really are doing well right now as a country. Well, you know how you can do well individually? Get good sleep. We're going to write a list of the best and the worst segues. I would call that like a 6 out of 10. But you know what's not a 6 out of 10? A MyPillow. Right now, you can get the queen size premium MyPillow for only $19.98 if you use the promo code Hartman. I've mentioned I sleep on a MyPillow. I sleep on the Giza Dream bed sheets. I use my towels, both bath towels and kitchen towels, and I wear my slippers. And you can get these products for a discount. You can get the 6-piece kitchen or bath towel sets for only $25. You can get the brand new mattress topper for $69.98. And as I said, you can get their famous queen size MyPillow for only $19.98. Go to mypillow.com or call 1-800-566-6745 and use the promo code Hartman to get big discounts on all MyPillow products, including the premium queen size MyPillow for only $19.98. That is the lowest price ever. Don't delay, order today. Use the promo code Hartman at checkout. So another thing that we have to understand about the United States' relationship with China is that it is not just a shocking thing here to have this indictment unsealed. We know that the Chinese government is undertaking massive, not covert, overt efforts to subvert and undermine the United States of America. This has been happening for decades, and especially has ramped up over the last decade, the exact time that Linda Sun was working in the New York State office, okay? I just want to read some of these stats to you so that we have a better understanding of what a big deal this is and what a scandal it is that the New York State government took this long to unearth what was going on. Because again, it is so staggeringly obvious. And this individual, because she was born in the People's Republic of China, she should have been profiled. It's not xenophobic. That's not unkind. That is called common sense. Are you telling me that if they would allow comparable individuals to come into the Chinese Communist Party, that they wouldn't vet these individuals who were born in the United States and have an extra amount of skepticism? By the way, I wouldn't even begrudge them for doing that. Because when you are a country, you have to look out for your own interests. And if people are coming to work in your government who are born in an adversarial country, that should be a red flag to anyone. Should even be more of a red flag because according to the Department of Justice, this is from 2021, about 80% of all economic espionage prosecutions brought by the DOJ allege conduct that would benefit China. And there is at least some nexus to China in around 60% of all trade secret theft cases. We also know that we have a huge fentanyl problem. In 2023, over 75,000 Americans died from synthetic opioid overdoses, according to U.S. government data. And we know that fentanyl, the parts of it are made and manufactured in China. And then they're sold to Mexican drug cartels who funnel it across our border recently at unprecedented rates. I'll read to you here from the National Institute on Drug Abuse. In 2023, law enforcement seized more than 115 million fentanyl pills. That is 10 times, this is reading from the Epoch Times and quoting from the NID, that is 10 times the amount seized in 2021 and 400 times the amount seized in 2018. That is an act of warfare. Maybe China isn't landing planes or sending out battalions, here in the United States, although we do know that in July, there were 2 Chinese and 2 Russian bomber planes that were intercepted by NORAD in Alaskan airspace. But maybe, the PRC isn't sending its soldiers to come land on our shores and execute Americans, but they're doing it far more effectively and far more clandestinely, far more in line with Sun Tzu's Article 1 rule in the art of warfare: subdue the enemy without fighting them. They hate us. They make no compunctions about the fact that they hate us. Xi Jinping made a statement about a year ago saying, quote, Western countries led by the U.S. have implemented all-round containment, encirclement, and suppression against us, bringing unprecedentedly severe challenges to our country's development. That statement was followed up by Qin Gang, his foreign minister, who says that unless the United States changes course, again, it's unclear what we are doing in order to contain, encircle, and suppress the PRC. In fact, we're allowing them to do that to us. But Qin Gang, the foreign minister, followed up by saying that there will, quote, surely be conflict and confrontation with the United States. Shall I go on? We know that in 2023, China sent a spy balloon to traverse over the United States for 4 days in our airspace, going over our military bases until we finally, too late, shot it off of the coast of South Carolina. We know that China opened a spy base on Cuba to spy on our biggest military bases in Florida, that China buys farmland next to our military bases, that TikTok and WeChat, which are apps used by hundreds of millions of Americans, seize the data of its users, and those companies are owned by in the case of TikTok ByteDance, which is a CCP-backed enterprise. We know that in 2022, the Department of Justice found that the People's Republic of China had sent affiliates who were planning to violently attack Zhang Yan, who is a Chinese national who ran for New York's 10th congressional district. And he lost that race, but he was espousing anti-Chinese Communist Party principles. And the DOJ found that the CCP had sent people to violently harass him. And so, forgive me for being unkind, but why are we allowing people who were born in China right now at this point in our country's relationship with China to work in our government? It doesn't make any sense. And in addition to that, we are not only not doing anything about this problem, but we are flooding the People's Republic of China with goodies in exchange for their generous infiltration and subversion. According to ICE data from 2020, we, the United States, award the highest number of student visas for Chinese students to come to the United States than any other country in the world. In 2020, according to ICE, we awarded 382,000 student visas to Chinese students. That is a third of a million. I mean, in just 1 year, that's unbelievable. That's 2 times the amount of the second place country, India, which gave 207,000 student visas, and 5 times the amount of South Korea, which in 2020 gave about 68,000 student visas. So we have this relationship where the Chinese Communist Party is sending its students over to be educated in the United States. We are trading partners with the PRC. I mean, the PRC steals billions of dollars of intellectual property from the United States. And there really has not been any significant government effort from neither the Democrats nor the Republicans in order to punish the People's Republic of China. First step number 1 is that we should automatically revoke student visas for any Chinese student who is here in the United States. I hate to say it. It doesn't bring me joy to say it. I love that America can be a place for people from all over the world to come and learn and contribute. But when we are having a government that is contributing, I would say, is responsible for the opioid overdoses of 75,000 Americans, when we have a government that is actively, overtly spying on us, stealing our intellectual property, seizing the information of Americans, sending out its affiliates to harass American citizens, and as we have seen a week ago, planting someone within the government in order to not only spy, but to further the interests of the PRC, we should not be awarding their students with visas. We have got to enact here some consequences and go, hey, you want to send your students to learn from us? You better stop. We should put a decade moratorium on that, seriously, because that will really get their attention, because they want their students to come here in order to learn from us. This brings me to this next part, which I think is just as important as what was unsealed in the indictment, and it pertains to education. As we saw earlier in this episode, there's this video circulating on the internet of Linda Sun when she was working as the chief diversity officer in the New York State government office. There's a video of her talking about DEI. And we watched the video where she was talking about institutionalizing DEI in the New York State office. We have picture 8 here of, this is the New York State government website talking about its DEI initiatives. And we heard her discussing her success in institutionalizing those. But we also hear her just talking generally about the importance of diversity, equity, and inclusion. And this is so important because this should be a kind of mirror for us. I was talking with someone the other day who had the New York Times write an unfavorable story about them. And this person was totally unruffled by the New York Times, the article. But nevertheless, I said to this individual, you know, when someone who you respect approves of you, that should be a source of encouragement. But similarly, when someone who you don't respect disapproves of you, that should be an equal source of encouragement. So I said to her, if the New York Times doesn't like you, it's probably an indication that you're doing something right. And so if we apply it to this situation, if there is a policy or a cultural legal endeavor, whatever we can even characterize DEI as, and we are seeing that a agent of a foreign government is trying, or not just of any foreign government, of our principal adversary, is trying to peddle that policy, it's probably an indication that that is not a beneficial policy to the United States of America. And here we see that she was the chief diversity officer for several years in the New York State government. And let's watch her talk about DEI. Let's play video 1.
So at the state, we created this program called ADAPT, and it's basically making sure that there is one person at every single state agency that answers directly to the commissioner or the highest person in that particular agency that makes diversity and inclusion and equity a top priority.
Yeah. Okay. Let's play video 11 too. That's another part of her talking about DEI.
Officer for the state. I think, when people say diversity and inclusion, I think everybody agrees, or most people generally agree that it's a good thing, right? But I think right now we also need to bring in the word equity, right? Diversity is when you say that there's, many different types of people with different backgrounds, and they're all, invited to the table. Inclusion is when, we include all of their ideas. But equity is when we make sure that all of the people who are at the table have equal access to making sure that their ideas and their thoughts are heard. And unfortunately, I think some of the statistics that you quoted is that we don't have that much leadership or representation
Except for you.
Of Asian Americans in, the corporate world, the government field, right?
So no one is going to pay attention to this, but this is so important. That here we have someone who is acting as a foreign agent who is using the diktats of DEI to further herself. I mean, look at her. She's saying, we know that there's not enough Asian American leadership. You are the proof. Who are you? You are an Asian American born in the PRC, working in some of the top spots next to the most powerful people in the United States. And you're going to tell us that there's not enough Asian American representation? But this is a weapon that many know that they can wield against the United States. They know because we are an open society. We talk about diversity. We talk about inclusion. We talk about giving people seats at the table. Many who are not acting in our best interests know that they can use this as a cudgel in order to advance themselves. And it's just so interesting because, in China, there's none of that talk. They don't talk about this at all. There's no such thing as there aren't enough seats at the table of people who are not Chinese. If you are any kind of foreigner, there is surely no seat at the table for you. And even if you are a Chinese individual yourself, if you are not spouting the government lines, there is certainly not a seat at the table for you. There is a execution and a disappearance for you. And so how rich, right? For an individual who is working on behalf of a country that doesn't even try to have any kind of openness and meritocracy and equal treatment, to come in and condescend to us and lecture to us about how we need to be doing more of it so that she can continue to secure her place as being an agent of our principal adversary. Is this not concerning to anyone? Does this not reveal something about the insidious efforts of many who are spouting DEI? It doesn't mean that every single person who adheres to or spouts it is doing so malignantly. But the jury is out that the DEI has been a disaster for our country. It has nothing to do with diversity or inclusion. It has a lot to do with equity. But it has contributed to policies which have undermined every single aspect of American society. And the PRC knows this, which is why they're trying to make it even more of a fixture in our country. We know the harmful effects of DEI, but I just want to really kind of read some here. Okay? Antelope Valley College in California postulates, according to its DEI diktats, that merit is a concept embedded in the ideology of whiteness and upholds race-based structural inequity. Merit protects white privilege under the guise of standards. So if you are a foreign adversary and you want to see the United States become weakened, to put it mildly, in order to benefit yourself, you're going to love a statement like that. Here we have internally the United States saying that merit is embedded in whiteness. You're going to love anything that contributes to the country that you hate, not fostering merit, not excelling, not growing. You're going to try to spread that cancer anywhere you can get it. I mean, my God, we talk about this all day. I am quite obsessed, as you know, with the Illinois Abused and Neglected Child Reporting Act, which endeavors to reclassify abused child, that term, as one whose parents denies the child gender-affirming services. Denying gender-affirming care would come with, quote, criminal liability and the possibility of Child Protective Services to take the child away. Again, if you're a foreign country, a foreign adversary, forgive me, it's an important distinction, you're going to love this. You're going to want to support whatever ideology is tearing apart the population that you endeavor to subvert and control. It's really not that hard. So we got to take a hard look. If this CCP agent implants herself as a DEI officer and is trying to institutionalize this thing, it's probably not a good sign. Let me see here. Yes, I want to say one more thing on this point. This is so important. You know, a few months ago, I was talking about the Gaza solidarity encampments on Columbia's campus, which we're seeing a comeback, if you can call it that. We're seeing a resurrection of some of these already as classes have started. But I profiled this Chinese Communist Party news article. This is from Xinhua News Network, which is a news agency in the People's Republic of China. And they were profiling the Gaza solidarity encampments and the United States law enforcement arresting many of these protesters, especially on Columbia's campus in the case of students who were violating the university policy by having encampments on school property right in the middle of where students are going to class. Certainly they were violating not only campus, but state law by violently breaching Hamilton Hall, as they did last April. And so it was fascinating to me to see how our principal adversary, the Chinese Communist Party, would report on such a thing. Let's look at picture 9, again from Xinhua News Network. The headline goes, as the world watches in horror at the footage of U.S. police viciously suppressing student protests, it becomes painfully evident that America's espousal of free speech is a sham. So we have to understand that this is the playbook. This has always been the playbook of our foreign adversaries. During this episode, I profiled cartoons by the People's Republic of China during the time of the Korean War and actually also World War II. And these were, in addition to PRC cartoons, there were also cartoons from the Soviet Union. And they were essentially saying that the United States, this bearer of liberty and freedom and equality, was actually a sham. It was a hypocritical country because, among other things, we segregated the armed forces in World War II. And we had despicable Jim Crow laws in the South discriminating against Black Americans. And we saw that our adversaries seized on this in order to tell their population, you think it's so good over there in America. You hear about the freedom of capitalism and of free speech and freedom of religion, but it doesn't really work like that over there, because look at the way that they treat Black Americans. And of course, these countries had a point that we were falling down on our ideals and on the things that we claim to believe in. But there are some major differences. First of all, we have rectified those wrongs. And second of all, at least when we were falling down on those values, we were trying to live up to the values in the first place. Here we have communist China, which has never tried, or they would say that they have, of course, but they never have ever given their people freedom or basic human rights. If you speak out against the Chinese Communist Party, you can disappear and be executed. There are stories after stories profiled spectacularly, and among other publications, the Epoch Times, of the Chinese Communist Party forcefully organ harvesting its citizens in order to sell these organs on the black market. I've welcomed John Moody, who is a China expert, on the show to talk about facial recognition efforts, these cameras that the PRC has on the street in order to track people, their faces. There were even these articles about Apple Watches having heart rate monitors in order for the PRC to track those who are having impure thoughts about the regime. I mean, these individuals, they massacre the Uyghur Muslims. I mean, my gosh, these individuals have not even tried to have something approximating the standard of liberty and equality, which we have established here in the United States. But then they love to point out the differences in order to further themselves. And so we just have to be aware of this, that this is their playbook. And then we see that this foreign agent is coming in here and talking about, well, you need more equality, or more equity and more inclusion and more this and more that. Clearly, our foreign adversary views this as an effective mechanism to undermine the United States. They're very clear about it. I want to end by making us aware of a greater point which few people, at least publicly, talk about, and that it seems that over the past few decades, when we have encountered these cases of Chinese Communist Party infiltration and subversion, overwhelmingly, they have been with people in the Democratic Party. Now, of course, Peter Schweitzer, who wrote Blood Money, profiled this very well. There are people from both parties, make no mistake, who have unsavory relations with the People's Republic of China, who appear to have been bribed in some kind of way by the PRC. So this is not saying that Republicans or people who are not Democrats have not fallen into this. Of course they have. But let's look at this here. It's really important that this case, which is probably the most public case of a Chinese Communist Party foreign agent acting in the United States over the past decade, this individual has infiltrated a democratic state, democratic governors. I think that means something. I think that's important. I think it's also important that we know that a Chinese spy was a driver for the late California Senator Dianne Feinstein for 20 years. She's a Democrat. We also know that California Representative Eric Swalwell, a Democrat, had a 2-year House Ethics Committee investigation with regard to his relationship, which was found out to be a professional relationship, not personal from what I know, which was found to have been with a PRC spy. And we also know, although people have just zoomed past this, that about a year ago, and the Republicans in the House have not appeared to pick this up in any kind of way, shame on them, there was a story, several, from the Hunter Biden laptop, that thing that was Russian disinformation, which indicated that the Biden family had received massive kickbacks and bribes from Chinese Communist Party affiliates. For instance, in February of 2017, this is a few weeks after Vice President Joe Biden had left office as President Trump was inaugurated the month before, Ye Junming, who is a founder and chairman of the CEFC China Energy Company, which is, of course, like every other company in China, a CCP-backed enterprise, he had a private dinner with Hunter Biden, which at the end of it, he gave Hunter a 3.16 carat diamond worth $80,000. And then we saw in subsequent emails from later that year, in May of 2017, Mr. Junming had promised Hunter Biden $10 million for, quote, introductions alone. In a May 2017 email, we saw that infamous line, I guess infamous among some, but not among others, that this venture would include, quote, 10% held by H for the big guy. The big guy, Hunter Biden's business partners, including Tony Bobulinski, under oath, testified was Joe Biden. So again, we have emails from someone working at a CCP-backed enterprise who also, I didn't mention this, is publicly good friends with Xi Jinping. He is called the Belt and Road Billionaire, this individual, Ye Junming, because of his work with Xi Jinping and the Chinese Communist Party and their Belt and Road Initiative. We see emails. We saw already there was a gift of the diamond, and we see emails promising money for introductions alone and 10% going to the now president of the United States. And it didn't end there. We saw that according to subpoenaed bank records from 2017, LLCs, which were run by Hunter Biden and his business partner, including Robinson Walker LLC, got a wire transfer from State Energy HK Limited, a Chinese Communist Party company, sent $3 million to Robinson Walker. And then we saw that money in the subpoenaed bank records went to Walker, went to Hunter Biden, went to Joe Biden's brother James, and went to Haley Biden, the daughter-in-law. And this just like flies by people, including Republicans. Where is the follow-up on this? We know, I've profiled this on the show before, but we have to keep talking about it. We know that there were WhatsApp messages that were unearthed from this Hunter Biden laptop between Hunter Biden and Raymond Zhao, who is another Chinese CEFC employee. Excuse me. And Hunter wrote to this individual saying that he would, quote, like to understand why the commitment made has not been fulfilled. Hunter writes to this guy, tell the director that I would like to resolve this now before it gets out of hand. And now means tonight. And Z, if I get a call or text from anyone involved in this other than you, Zhang, or the chairman, I will make certain that between the man sitting next to me and every person he knows and my ability to forever hold a grudge, that you will regret not following my direction. So, of course, he's referring to his father, the former vice president of the United States at that point, and then photos from that time, again, these texts are from July of 2017, show that Joe Biden and Hunter were together. And then, as it turns out, according to subpoenaed bank records, about a week later, on August 4th, 2017, we saw that CEFC paid one of the other LLCs, there were like 20 of them, $100,000, and then another $5 million was transferred a day later. But whatever, right? Who cares? No wonder the Chinese Communist Party has had such success with fentanyl, with spying, with TikTok, with WeChat. No wonder. No wonder we continue to award hundreds of thousands of student visas to Chinese nationals. Because this is what they've done. They have individuals planted in the government. They have people bought off. It's a whole massively successful scheme that they have been furthering for decades upon decades. And now we are seeing that people from both sides of the political aisle are really not doing anything about this. And that indicates that they themselves have somehow been tied in with this scheme. And lest you think that any of this is conspiratorial, even though I don't know how you possibly could with the amount of evidence I've presented. We have a statement from Di Dongsheng, who is the vice dean of the School of International Relations at Renmin University in Beijing. And this is from November of 2020. This is right after Joe Biden won the presidency. And he said, plain and simple, quote, "We have people at the top. We have our old friends who are at the top of America's core inner circle of power and influence. For the last 30, 40 years, we've been utilizing the core power of the United States. And now we're seeing Biden was elected. Trump has been saying that Biden's son has some sort of global foundation. Who helped him build those foundations? Got it? Well, I certainly got it. And I also certainly got it when after the Chinese Communist Party sent a spy balloon to traverse the United States in the early weeks of 2023, I got it when the president seemed to wave that off as just an embarrassing incident by our foreign adversary. Let's recall this one, video 13.
I think one of the things that balloon caused was not so much that it got shot down, but I don't think the leadership knew where it was and knew what was in it and knew what was going on. I think it was more embarrassing than it was intentional. And so I'm hoping that over the next several months, I'll be meeting with Xi again and talking about legitimate differences we have, but also how there's areas we can get along.
Yeah, rule number one is you never say of a country trying to spy on you that their efforts were probably more embarrassing or intentional. And you especially don't say that with regard to the Chinese Communist Party, whose every gosh, having Joe Biden moments today, whose every move, every word, and probably every mood too, is totally calculated, as we know from this recent indictment. Okay, before we end, I want to tell you once more about gold, because right now is a very globally and economically volatile time, which means it's a very good time to tie your assets to something physical, something that has value amidst all of these changing monetary policies and circumstances. Economists are warning us about tax hikes that could hit our 401ks and IRAs hard. We know that we have continuing inflation, it's even rising, and that's why central banks and many Americans are turning to gold. If you haven't thought about gold yet, now is the time, and you should consider trusting Priority Gold to help you diversify your savings with gold and silver. Text gold into 1-800-405-GOLD for a free gold information guide and see if you qualify for free shipping and storage. Experts agree that physical gold is one of the best ways to fortify your savings. Act now to get your portfolio working for you while the market is golden. Text golden to 1-800-405-GOLD. That's text golden to 1-800-405-GOLD. Thank you all so much for joining me. I hope that you will come to the show tomorrow, live at 1 o'clock Pacific, 4 o'clock Eastern, and definitely come Wednesday as we will be doing debate recap between Trump and Harris. Let's see if they bring up China. That would be very smart if Trump did that. We got one final note from our producer I'm seeing, and then we'll bid you adieu.
Well, I've been listening and looking up things that may be interesting to you.
Yeah, of course. Tell me.
As of 2021, 17% of our Congress are people born outside the United States. I could not find a single American-born citizen in the Chinese government.
Funny how that one works, right?
The Chinese Americans are the fastest growing population in the United States. And between 2016 and 2020, they experienced the largest increase in voter turnout.
Just some facts there, worthy of our attention. Yeah. And, you know, I was recently reading an article in the New York Times from a professor, I believe it was at Columbia. I can dig that up and then show it to you in a subsequent episode, who was arguing that any person's efforts to try to clamp down on Chinese Communist Party efforts in the United States proves that they are xenophobic. And this person went back and was talking about the 1882 Chinese, God, what was it called? You know, it's so funny. I wrote a whole essay on it. It was the Chinese Immigration Barring Act. I should dig that up. I wrote 30 pages in college on this act. And this individual was trying to act like there was some kind of continuation now in 2024 with discrimination against Chinese nationals. It's just complete bogusness. And you know what's really unbelievable? I'll end with this. 200 years ago, we Americans and other Western powers were going to China and setting up special economic zones in order to get our way with trade. And we were exploiting them. We were undermining their sovereignty. We totally were. We also, the West, Britain, was selling opium to the Chinese. And this actually resulted in war, the Opium Wars, because so many Chinese individuals were overdosing on opium. And it's just so interesting that 200 years later, we have a complete reversal, where now the modern day Chinese Communist Party is totally subverting and undermining economically the United States. And they are the ones making and manufacturing the fentanyl, which is killing us.
Were you talking about the Chinese Exclusion Act of 1882?
That's what it was, Chinese Exclusion Act, yeah. Thank you. Okay, we'll see you tomorrow. I so appreciate your being here. Of course, you can email me at julie@julie-hartman.com. I love hearing from you. And I just want to say, for the record, that of course, none of this is intended to say that every single Chinese individual or national who has gotten citizenship here in the United States is an agent of the PRC. It's ridiculous I even have to put in that kind of disclaimer, but of course I know that my words will be twisted. We have Zhang Yang, who was someone who was targeted by the CCP because he became an American citizen and was running for New York state government in order to further what he saw as the American way of life, and he was very anti-CCP. But what I am saying is that if we have someone who is born in communist China, who is coming here and working in the government and seems to be doing things that are very much in line with what the CCP wants that person to do, I don't think it's xenophobic to have some questions about that. Yes.
I want to be exact. It was the 117th Congress, and it was 14%, not 17%. Foreign-born people in
xenophobe. On that note,
I just want to be sure.
No, I appreciate the exactitude. See you guys tomorrow. Thanks for being with me.